everybody, welcome to another bonus episode of What a Hell of a Way to Dad. It is your monthly Deadliest Warrior recap, and this month, I have Jason
Alexander.
Jason Alexander, Josh Borman
yes.
from Worst of All Possible World. Josh, how do you like how I fucked up your intro there?
I thought it was great, Francis. Thank you so much.
Great, yeah. I looked at your name like 5 times.
Wait, hold on. Let me try. I'm going to do that again. I thought it was really great. Fred.
That's fine. We're going to do this entire podcast under completely different personalities.
Jason and Freddie. It's a serial killer podcast now. How about that?
Oh my God.
Woo.
Do you just want to talk about serial killer movies then?
I mean, I could.
I'm not really into them myself.
No, I'm not either.
Yeah. That's right. So on Worst of All Possible Worlds, you do a lot of media critique, and I've brought you here to do some media critique on the greatest media that was ever created by Spike TV, Deadliest Warrior.
Yeah, I had never watched this before. This is such a Spike TV show. I loved pretty much everything about it. The production style, the guys. I mean, this is a show that just is a show of guys, and I loved every moment of it.
Yeah. The problem is that they're all the exact same guy. Like, no matter what, whether you're talking about the regular mainstays like Jeff Desmoulins, Armin Dorian, and Max Geiger, or your experts, they're all the same kind of guy.
That makes sense.
And that guy is somebody who works on movies in a kind of small role. Because, the easiest way to get somebody who's like, when you need to test swords, you got to find a sword guy.
Right.
But you're not going to find a sword guy in Missouri. I'll tell you that.
Well, I noticed this time around they got Meyer Lansky 2, which that surprised me. I didn't know there was a Meyer Lansky 2.
Yes, Meyer Lansky 2 and Johnny Ferrato, both actual descendants from the one Lansky is a descendant from I guess Meyer Lansky first.
Yeah.
And he was very very into it. I love when they get guys who are really into it.
Yes.
Like, these guys show up and when the Al Capone team. So this is Jesse James versus Al Capone. I guess I should introduce that too. Jesse James, as a Missourian, Jesse James is very near and dear to my heart because he is the brutal Confederate piece of shit that we all know and love here in the state. And then Al Capone's a Chicago guy.
Right.
Yeah. And let's, for first impressions going in, you see Jesse James versus Al Capone. Who you got before even watching the episode?
I kind of was leaning, I think, toward Jesse James just by virtue of training, discipline, things of that nature. Al Capone obviously being such a brutal guy who ruled via force, but also mostly via control of institutions, whereas Jesse James really had to constantly be on the move and have a great degree of tactical finesse because he always had the law on him. And the show says as much,
Yeah, they will admit, this is not a scientific show. This is a show for you and your buddies to get into a case of stag and watch 3 episodes and have very loud arguments with one another. That's and we said this is also really during the height of Mythbusters. So Mythbusters was that show for kind of smarter people, and then Spike TV was like, but what if we did car crashes? What if we just ran cars into stuff because they did it in movies, and we're going to do it again and see if we can run a car into a wall the same way that they did in Fast and Furious, which 100% I will watch. I do want to see if you can do that. Like any proper American, if there's a chance that I'm going to watch somebody get hurt, I'm there.
Oh yeah,
I'm going to make sure that I'm watching. I love Jesse James, but Al Capone, I kind of had him because the difference between eras of gun. You've got the revolver and the lever action rifle, which were both very new. Like, the revolvers weren't new, but the type of ammunition they were using was fairly new. The whole the whole shell, rather than having to do bits and bits and bits that you have to put into it and tamp it down and all that. So there are a lot of gun advances that are made for Jesse James, but Al Capone's got the machine gun, and that's
right. And that was something I was not familiar with, sort of the framing and concept of this show. So I was kind of surprised that they were like, well, if they fought each other, they would just be using their period appropriate equipment, because obviously the differences in weapons technology and ordnance is pretty significant. But I guess, again, for the sake of the concept, it makes sense that you'd be like, yeah, Jesse James would be coming in with his Winchester, and then you would get Al Capone with his Tommy gun.
Right. Well, the idea is you're pitting the weapons against the weapons.
Right.
When there's one, the Shaolin monk versus Maori warrior, and the Shaolin monk ended up taking it because they they had steel, and the Maori warrior was still basically in the Stone Age because, the islands. And I will say with pirates versus knights, the pirate had a gun and the knight obviously didn't. But it was a pirate gun, is like a 1700s gun. So it's not very accurate and honestly didn't really puncture the breastplate.
Sure, because those would basically be like muskets, right? They wouldn't have rifling or anything.
Right. And especially with a pistol, it's small, it's short range, and like at the time, it's going to suck to get a musket ball in you because there's no such thing as like washing your hands before pulling a bullet out of you. So you're going to die one way or the other. But like purely from like a today's standard, getting hit with a musket ball, something like that is much more survivable. I'm not going to say it's great, but it is there.
Were the knights just strictly out of curiosity, were the knights able to deflect the musket balls with their armor, or was it penetrated?
So it depended. The musket ball, I remember, kind of bounced off.
Okay, that's what I would expect.
It wasn't. Yeah, but the shotgun, the blunderbuss went through.
Sure, that makes sense.
Yeah. So, and this is, of course, they're doing this with, they're doing it with like modern recreations of these things. So again, we're only taking the science so far. This isn't something where we're all gonna at the end of the day put it into an executive order and write it up. Although, if I was president, I couldn't be doing worse than the original guy, the current guy. If I was a executive order specifically about Deadliest Warrior.
Yeah, Donald Trump should definitely pass a Deadliest Warrior executive order.
It's like right up his alley.
Yeah.
This is a perfect show for him. All right, so let's talk about our experts that we have. So on Team Jesse James, we have Joey Dillon and J.W. Wiseman. Joey Dillon, I feel like he was not done justice on the show, specifically because if you look him up, his full name is Joey Rocket Shoes Dillon, and not in like the quotes like, oh, we just call him Rocket Shoes. No, as if it is his Christian name written on a birth certificate. Joey Rocket Shoes, all one word. Dillon.
Maybe it is. We don't know.
These are all Hollywood people. Like I said, these are all people that live and work on movies. Joey works as a armorer on movies, and he's got a YouTube page where he talks about working on Buster Scruggs, and he's a gun guy. He's got a lot of gun stuff, but like specifically Old West guns. So that is his forte, and perfect guy to get for this because Jesse James, as they mentioned in the show, is a expert marksman. He was always known as a expert marksman with his pistol. So you got to get a guy who knows what he's doing, because I certainly don't. These are, guns that are 150 years old require so much more things to happen to it for it to work, like hammer if it's not double action, things like that. So Joey is really into all of that. And then his partner J.W. Wiseman, if you look him up, he's got a webpage that's really dedicated to saying, hey, I'm available for TV shows. I can, he's a Wild West guy. If you need a cowboy to do cowboy stuff and look old and have a big beard and be very scraggly looking, you can call J.W. Wiseman.
Yeah, no, that guy, he is a scrungly motherfucker. That's really the only way I can describe him.
Yeah, I'm usually not into the the concept of manly men and everything, but if somebody's trying to do it, J.W. Wiseman is pulling it off perfectly, because he's like, it's that like mix of like, yes, I'm on a ranch and I do these and I can throw a lasso and I can shoot a bullet and I can do all these really cool cowboy things.
Yeah.
Like, but you still go to Costco on the weekends.
Exactly.
Like, it's cool you can do those things, but you're not doing them. You're doing them for the movie. So
I thought that
take it back a bit.
Joey Dillon's pistol spinning technique, like his drawing and all that, was very cool. He's got it down.
Yeah. Joey Dillon was a joy to watch. Usually a lot of times they bring people on who are, we are like a sword expert. Like when they did Spartan versus Ninja, they had to bring in people who were, one, unnecessarily into the Spartans, but like, also being like, we're historians, we're sword swingers. And they are people who, when you look them up, yes, they do sword choreography in Hollywood, but that doesn't make them an expert in swinging a Spartan sword. But it doesn't matter. They still can swing it. But Joey Dillon, watching somebody who is really good at their job.
No,
and
that guy can shoot.
Yeah, it was very impressive to watch Joey go. And then over on Al Capone's team, we have Meyer Lansky II, as we said, a mafioso descendant, and Johnny Lou Frotto, who, as I looked up, he unfortunately passed back in 2015.
Okay.
But he is, if you look him up, he was on the Howard Stern show a lot, and he was like the manager for Eric the actor. And that's like really like one of his big things is he's kind of a descendant from mafia guys. And I love the idea, just like what's his name? Lansky II. I love the idea of my job is I'm this guy's son.
Yes.
You know, like we make fun of Meghan McCain for doing it, but it is a viable mode of getting money is I'm this person's child and you should respect me because, you know, I don't think Meyer Lansky II probably did too much mafia stuff, but he's really into it. And you know what? More power to him.
Yeah. And I would say there is something about Johnny Lufrato that actually did really, really scare me. He's sort of play acting in a way, but he does seem to have, particularly in the part which we'll get to, when he was fucking around with the switchblade. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I found it a little unnerving. This guy also, he kind of looks like Baby Billy.
He does. He's got that blown up blonde hair and wears sunglasses all the time on the inside and looks like he just stepped out of a tanning salon.
Yes.
Absolutely. He's got Baby Billy but mafia.
Right.
So yeah, let's get into it then. So our first one that the first matchup that we have here is the Colt revolvers versus the Tommy gun. And the way that they are going to pit these two together is they set up like a shooting gallery with people. They always love to put big bottles of red, like wine bottles that you can shoot. The greatest thing about this show is they do not spare any expense on fake blood. They will fucking paint the walls with fake blood.
Which is great, because that's what you're there to see.
Exactly. Like, you know, I'm not going to get the full, because in the earlier episodes, they really weren't shoving the blood bags into everything. You know, when they would bring a pig out and do pig stabbing or pig cutting, it would just be the pig. And then they realized, like, no, we need to put like a bag of this red corn syrup in the inside because it's the only way it's going to look really cool.
Which is so funny. Yeah, because they've got these sides of meat that have already been butchered, but like they have to then put the blood back in them. It's great. Yeah, they have to put the blood and organs into it because these pigs, these are cleaned pigs. I have, you know, these are the pigs that you buy to do a cookout or something. Like you get it. No, these already are fully prepared sides of meat.
And they're just shoving a bunch. And I always feel like, man, that's a good pig that you're wasting there. But also, you know, it's for the science. So is it really a waste if we're learning something? So Joey gets up there with the revolvers and is just absolutely insane with them. 12 shots, all of them on point. He hits targets. He gets kills and he blows up some bottles and does it all. Like his first shot is in the first quarter second. Like an insane draw time.
Unbelievably good on the draw. And this was one too where watching this, I was like, in general, it is always really cool to watch somebody who is very good at what they do. As sort of, as you were saying, like, it's not just that he has an understanding of the weaponry, it's that he has an unparalleled ability to use it. And there's something, it's like watching an artist at work.
Absolutely. And he is phenomenal on this pull. They have him, we watch him do the draw in, on the slow cam multiple times. And thank goodness, because it is incredible. Because when you watch it at regular speed, it seems impossible.
Yeah.
But somehow he's managing to pull and shoot. And that is the big, you know, vantage point that the James gang had is one, surprise, you know, a bunch of horsemen just show up, and two, being able to hit a target while moving, which is the next thing that we'll get to. But first we have the Tommy gun. So they reset up set everything up. They get, I think it was Ferrado out there with a Tommy gun. A recreation Tommy gun, which you can buy. They are incredibly stupid and not great guns, but you can buy one if you really want to relive the Al Capone. Although you can't get them fully automatic, so I'm not too sure how they managed that one. But
would this not just have been an old gun that they were able to refurbish?
I mean, possibly. And look, you can make a semi-automatic, a fully automatic gun legally in these kinds of pretenses. I imagine. Joey Dillon is an armorer, so I'm sure he knows the guys to talk to make sure that they can get the guns that they need to do what they have to do. But, you know, you're off the rack. You can, I haven't seen them available on a shelf in a long time, but you did used to be able to buy them off the rack. that drum magazine, you could do a drum mag or you could do like a straight magazine. But I feel like a lot of the weapons, like they try to recreate them to the best, best they can. Like, again, you go back to the Maori warriors, a lot of what they're doing, like I said, is Stone Age. So it's going to require stones, but also sticks and things that, don't hold up over the test of time, things that break and need to be replaced. So I don't know. Joey didn't really seem to talk about like, these are, my exact, guns that were from this era versus recreations, but I do know recreations are created.
That's kind of a shame. Like I would have loved to, and again, I get that the point of the show is who would win in a fight, right? But I actually would have really enjoyed getting a little bit more detail into the nuts and bolts of how they even managed to sort of get a hold of and rebuild these weapons. But that's probably more nitty gritty than most viewers of this show want, I would imagine.
Yeah, we got so many pigs full of blood we got to get
exactly.
through. All right, so the machine gun does a tidy little work on the setup, but because it's a machine gun, it's really spray and pray. I would say one way or the other, I don't want to be on the other side of either one of these things. So it's the win goes to the Tommy gun because of the kind of speed that you can
to the fact that it is a fully automatic rifle. Right. Yes.
Right. And I got to say also the shit talking between these two teams. Yeah. Look, every team shit talks.
Yes.
It's part of the whole thing. But I feel like the shit talking was really taken to another level with this one because you have two mafiosos who probably have been shit talking their entire lives and have no problem with it.
Well, and a lot of these zingers are definitely scripted too, which makes it really funny. Like they are doing their best to deliver the lines that the producers gave them, and they pull it off actually.
Yeah. Yeah, these guys manage it. You'll if you go back and watch any of the older episodes, you'll see a lot of stumbles and people who are obviously trying to remember something. There was one bit of a little bit of racism at the end of the Shaolin Monk one, where one of the Maori warrior guys was just I guess because the Shaolin Monks won and the Maori warrior expert was just like, I don't know, maybe I don't know if we can trust that. Probably a Chinese made computer. It was like, dude, don't. And then credits, like, don't end it on that.
That's so funny. Yeah, but that's Spike TV for you.
It is like that's an acceptable level of racism for Spike TV in 2010. All right, so we're not content though with just standing in one place. We got to get it moving too. So they put Jay Wiseman onto a horse, and they have him run. And there's 5 targets, and he's got to shoot and hit each target. And then they do the same with the Tommy gun, driving in this really nice. Like they found a beautiful car and then drove it through the worst dirt in the middle of a quarry just to make a point, which I respect. Like when they bring out that like 1930s car that you're like, yes, that's obviously a mafia car, and then just proceed to put a guy in it to shoot a gun out the window and drive it through dirt and rocks. Beautiful. Like that's I can think of no better way to teach me a lesson than to destroy something.
Well, it's also like the thing that really jumped out at me as I was watching this was like, this was only 15 years ago, but even in that intervening period, we have lost so much just in terms of practical production. And I know maybe that sounds dumb, but there's something about the way that so much more has moved into the realm of CG and automation and everything like that. And you forget just how nice it is to have something that is real and tangible and physical, right? When things really move, when you can see the effects of the way that all of the forces of physics operate on something, even for this incredibly stupid little show. I don't know. I feel like we're losing something. And maybe that's just me waxing philosophical about some bullshit, but it hit me weirdly hard.
Yeah, there is a time, because I also think about back to Mythbusters, when it was like, let's just get the stuff and weld it all together and see what happens. Right. And it really was a great time for that. And if you were in the business of making ballistics gel torsos, you were making some bank left and right at this time. But yeah, it does. You do miss out on that. Like every TV show has to cost like $3 million per episode, when you could just like, what if we got some guys in a warehouse and just have them fuck around with some weapons and see what they can do?
It's like, ultimately, it's probably going to actually be cheaper, and it's certainly going to look better.
Yeah, it's gonna work out. It's gonna be more visceral. Like if I can't imagine like any other way to try to do this TV show unless they were like, oh, we're just going to feed all of this into AI, which is just never going to be as satisfying.
But I guess I also feel like the thing about this type of content is that it's now largely moved over to YouTube, right? That's where you're going to find stuff like that these days, is on YouTube channels that are dedicated to, ballistics and let's try this kind of thing out. In fact, there's a few of these kinds of channels that I follow.
Yeah, I know Mark Rober is a big one. I'm a big fan of him because he does a lot of practical engineering stuff. And let me put this stuff together and let's see what happens, which is how I work in IT. And I made that joke today of like, I don't know, if we hit this big button, this thing will be fixed, but maybe other things will be broken. We won't know till we hit the button. So hit the button. Let's go.
Yeah, or that channel. Are you familiar with Smarter Every Day?
I am. Yeah.
Like that's another, I think, great example of that kind of thing.
Yeah, and Spike TV, of course, you're not going to really learn anything. I'm not going to go I read books on Jesse James, so I do have a lot of knowledge on him. And I would certainly never, say, well, on Deadliest Warrior during the Jesse James episode, this isn't, it's unnecessary. But it's still entertaining.
Yeah.
And I think that's also another thing that we miss out on is this, what if TV was just a bunch of guys doing some cool shit? Because people want to watch that. I do. Yeah. I know I do.
Well, dudes rock, right?
They do. All right, so next up, we're going to come into close quarter combat. We've got the Stiletto versus the Bowie knife. The Stiletto, as you mentioned, it's one of the first times that you start to really get an idea of Johnny Ferrato's background.
His whole deal. Yeah.
His whole, he is too comfortable with that. He is too comfortable and he's smiling far too much. So his first move is to stab into the cheek of a ballistics gel torso, cut through the face.
He gives him the Joker smile.
Yeah. He gives him a Joker smile. He cuts the neck and then goes for the belly with the stiletto. So, and again, fantastic. I don't care if this is scientifically correct or not. It's just some great moves that he does.
Well, it's the same way with how when Joey Dillon, does the quick draw, spins the pistols, puts them back in the holsters. It's like, oh, he's done this before. Something about the speed and precision with which he handles that switchblade. I don't know. I don't know.
It's a little uncomfortable.
Yeah.
No, I'm with you. It's a little. He's smiling a little too much, and he's hitting the marks a little too easily. And it's that when you come across the real good contract killers, where it's 2 in the chest and 1 in the head. That's what you're getting here.
Right.
He's just like, no, it's not just cutting the face, and it's not just cutting the throat, and it's not just cutting the abdomen. I also need to stab you in the aorta through the chest.
Right. And how much of this is something that he's practiced for the sake of the show versus has he actually killed a man before? I couldn't say. I genuinely could not say. But no. I do know that this is not a man who I would want to cross.
No, I don't want to see this guy with the stiletto walking towards me. Ever. So that goes up against the Bowie knife, which is a favorite of mine. Big ass fucking knife, giant stabby thing that is, it was the ye old utility knife. This is the thing that you use to cut trees up if you needed to cut your meat up for dinner.
Yeah, I played Red Dead Redemption 2. I know what this is.
Yeah, it's your everything knife. It's a knife. It's a blade. It can skin, it can kill, it can I don't know, maybe you can make love to it. I've known some weird guys in the military, so I'm not going to put it out of the running there. So instead of a ballistics gel torso, they bring out the pig full of blood and guts, and they just let Wiseman go fucking nuts on this thing. And again, the computer program gives it to the Bowie knife by 1, but if I'm giving this, based on just how good the production value is here, how good of a kill do we see? I got to give it to the stiletto.
Well, and if I recall correctly, the judgment call they did give to the stiletto.
Yes, they did give the stiletto, but I don't know how much I can trust what they're going for there.
Right, because they want to keep it it's even up until they do the simulation at the end. Right.
Yeah, there's always got to be one guy, and luckily they have 3 people, so they can break the ties if necessary.
Right.
But yeah, that Bowie knife move was also pretty fucking sweet. And then he ends it with throwing it at the pig and it's sticking in
that was sick.
Sticking directly into it.
When he threw the knife from a good distance. Oh, that was fantastic. And
it looked like a good 10-foot throw. And it's not a lot of times when you watch this, you can see where they've got the times that they've tried to do it and failed. I don't know if there's a failure on this one because he just throws that so casually and it just sticks in there. And he's like, yeah, he walks away, not even looking at it.
It is kind of weird though, because like that kill, right, is in terms of the speed and so forth, I would say almost as visceral as the Stiletto kill, but he's not taking pleasure in gutting a human torso in the same way. And so it's less upsetting or discomforting, I suppose, to watch.
Right. It's the idea of like, I'm doing this because it's part of the business and I have to do it. So I do it, and I do it with precision versus I live for this shit and I can't wait to cut somebody else's throat again. Yeah. Don't feel great about that guy. All right. So after we have that, then we take it to grenade. So grenade versus rifle, which I thought was a curious one to go with, but I think they did it okay.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like they just couldn't, it was like they couldn't quite figure out a good parallel because obviously an area weapon is different from a long range rifle. Those are just fundamentally different in terms of their utility.
Yeah, and Al Capone really doesn't have a Winchester version of a weapon. You know, they have the Tommy gun, they have pistols, but they're not taking people out from a distance. They're not sniping anybody. So the Winchester rifle, the lever action rifle versus the pineapple bomb, they set up a little house. And then they have one of the guys throw the grenade in there and then run away.
Yeah, that was a very funny setup. It's like this fucking Mr. Beast ass construction.
Because let me tell you something. There's no way that was allowed to happen. I've watched too much Mythbusters with explosions and grenades to know that what he's throwing in there is inert, and
that's
then
a prop,
they're not gonna, it's a prop, and then they'll run away, and then they're going to cut to the explosion.
Right.
Which is fine. I'm glad that they're adding these little bits into it. I feel like it adds to the ridiculousness of it all, which is what I'm looking for.
So do you think the real thing was just like some dynamite or something?
No, I do believe that they get a real like version of whatever weapon it is, or at least a kind of recreation, because I think the pirates had granados as well during that episode, and you know that's a 16th 17th century explosive. It's just a ball with some explosive powder in it, you know, so they're getting as close as they can. I do feel because they have to you can't fake a grenade, because a grenade doesn't explode with fire. It explodes with shrapnel. Right. So you have to get a proper understanding of it, because they're talking about is like you have to ascertain the shrapnel wounds of this as well. So you have to get something at least grenade-like that is going to put out the same thing.
Yeah, because if it was like dynamite, it would set the thing on fire, which is obviously not what you want.
Exactly. And that, I'll tell you, grenades are one of the biggest letdowns during grenade day during basic training, because there is a protected place where you can like watch the grenades go off, and it doesn't look cool. There's no fire. It's not all that fun. But much like I tell you, so these guys obviously put a lot of accelerant into some of the explosions that they do, because obviously it's got to be on TV and they got to make it look better. Right. And I'll tell you who else did that is the Taliban, because when they would be videotaping their IEDs against us, and it wouldn't look cool without a fireball, so they would just like throw propane tanks into the back of the truck or something. Yeah, so that when it explodes, there is a fireball and it looks cooler. So don't underestimate propaganda, even while you're trying to kill people.
You are not immune to propaganda.
You never, especially when it comes at you in the form of an explosive. So we've got the grenade. It kills almost everybody, but one person they say survives. It's not just the shrapnel, but it's also the pressure, the shockwave that comes from the grenade as well. So they've got at least one guy that dies with the shockwave. A couple other guys die from the shrapnel. Put that up against the Winchester, and the way that they decided to do this is that the grenade has like a 5-second fuse. So between throwing the grenade, you know, in concept, you know, somebody throws a grenade, you see a grenade, you have 3 to 5 seconds to get the fuck out of there if your brain registers it. So the idea is, can somebody kill all of these guys in 5 seconds with a rifle before the grenade goes off? And it was done very well. They put up 4 targets. It was 4 targets because they had 4 in the...
I believe so.
Yeah, they had 4 inside of the in the side of the structure. And he went through with lever action rifle, hit all 4, and then started to go back and hit 2 of them again before the 5-second timer was up.
These were like all direct shots to the head. This was very impressive.
Yeah, and look, I shoot, and I do not shoot anywhere near that well, especially with something like a lever action rifle. Like that is something that it takes years and years to get to. Well,
that's the other thing. Yeah, just the reloading speed was incredible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I do think that this kind of goes to, skill levels here, because Jesse James requires you to be good with these things. Al Capone does not. I mean, a grenade, and a Tommy gun, a stiletto, and then the brass knuckles that we'll get to, those are all things that can be wielded by any dumbass.
Right.
But, you put Colt 45 revolvers in my hand today, I'm not hitting targets like these guys are. I'm not drawing leather as fast as them. I can't compete with them, and I probably never will because I'm in my 40s at this point. So,
this kind of goes back to the bigger question that I have about the concept of this show, right? Which is, to what extent is this accurately reflecting the skill level and training of these people versus just relying on the mechanical superiority of the weaponry?
Right.
It seems like they kind of try to account for skill, but I don't know.
Jesse James was known as a expert marksman.
Right,
like
exactly.
That is that they brought in experts because they had somebody who was that was Jesse James as good as Joey Rocket Shoes Dillon? I don't know. Maybe or maybe not.
Right.
But we're trying to scientifically ascertain how quickly somebody can pull the idea of how fast can somebody do this, and then we'll say sure, maybe Jesse James was able to do that, but we do know it's possible to draw this fast and shoot this well because we have people here who can prove it. So therefore we can say, if Jesse James was this good, he would beat Al Capone because he's got these skills.
Yeah, well, and this is highly scientific. This is a perfect, infallible method that clearly follows all the principles of the scientific method and is really unimpeachable, I would say.
Yeah, I appreciate you for writing the preamble for my executive order on this. All right, so finally, we have our special weapons. We have brass knuckles versus a pistol whip. Feels like they were just kind of reaching for this one. But that's fine. So we get Ferrado with the brass knuckles, which is also a thing that I felt uncomfortable watching him use.
Yeah, not great. Not great.
He's really good at crushing a skull with some brass knuckles.
He certainly is.
We'll just say.
Although, again, there was something about his resemblance to Baby Billy that made me laugh every time because I just couldn't. In my head, I was just hearing, nah, you done fucked up. Nah, I'm gonna have to punish you with my brass knuckles now.
Go on now before I punch you in the skull a third time.
That's dangerous. Have you been watching this season of Gemstones?
I have. I'm not fully caught up to it, but yeah, I do know Teen Just.
Oh my God! Now run along now. You Teen Just now.
Yeah, I could definitely see Ferrado getting a at least a understudy for Baby Billy on this one because he does have that like crooked smile too.
He's
that Goggins is so good at
for sure.
Yeah, he's very Goggins-esque. There it is. Coin that one on the show. Goggins-esque. So the pistol whip, where you just whip the shit out of somebody with a gun.
Yeah.
So brass knuckles versus pistol whip, really the only thing that they can, measure here is how hard do you hit with your chunk of metal.
Right.
And the pistol whip hits like twice as hard as the brass knuckles.
But also, of course it does, because of how physics work. Like with brass knuckles, yes, you're getting the energy sort of focused into the points of the knuckles. But with a pistol whip, you are getting the additional leverage of throwing your entire wrist into it, and then additional energy gets transferred into the gun. So this isn't a fair comparison.
No. And this is why we need Mythbusters to go through and redo all of these so they can explain the science behind it and why the pistol whip wins over the brass knuckles. It's because, using your arm as a lever and using gravity and force momentum. And we can talk about, the laws of motion. But then I think, Ferrado would just say like a slur at us.
That's right. Can you imagine just the variety of slurs that man, that man has probably used slurs that are unknown and have been unknown in the English language for 100 years.
Yeah. That man has slurs for countries that do not exist anymore.
Absolutely.
He's got a Rolodex of slurs for Yugoslavian people.
Yes.
Hasn't existed in 30 years, but he's ready just in case he meets somebody.
That's right. His slurs for Austro-Hungarians Let me tell you something.
Well, I've got slurs for Austro-Hungarians too. It's okay. That one's okay. It's like having slurs for Belgians. It's fine. The Belgians deserve it.
They certainly do.
All right, so let's get into our final battle. We can run the numbers, but until we actually put force on force here, we're not going to get a full idea of what we're getting here, right? So, and every one of these episodes has the where they go. So in the past, as I've said, this is all in Hollywood, LA. So in the past, anytime they wanted to do outside battles, it was basically like the scrub brush that's behind the warehouse. Mm-hmm. So you'd have like a pirate and a knight fighting in California scrub, as you do. But they're really upping in season 2 here. They're really upping the production values. They're actually taking our people into buildings, and they're they're creating these scenes for them to run around and shoot in.
I love these kinds of reenactments. This is so much fun.
Yeah, and I also love that this kind of bounces back and forth between we've got Jesse James's settings, and then we've got Al Capone settings, which are vastly different because obviously Al Capone was a gangland in Chicago urban area, and Jesse James was very rural. But the first scene, it seems like they've broken into a Civil War museum.
Yes, to steal all of the Confederate money.
Stealing all the Confederate money. There's a shredded Confederate flag behind them. There's a painting of like Lincoln and then a few other people behind it. It very much seems like this is, and I will say, along with all of this, Jesse James was a slave owner and abhorrent Confederate, like horrible racist, as anybody at that time would be. Hated the Union, had his reasons for hating the Union. The Union certainly was not a great army either to the people, especially on the front, frontline Missouri, where you're just up against the wilderness. Union soldiers usually huge assholes.
Well, and that's not even getting into the various crimes against Native Americans.
Exactly. But Jesse James did watch like Union soldiers like half lynch one of his stepfathers, and that kind of left him with a, well, fuck these guys forever kind of feeling, which I kind of get. I get it. Unfortunately, he was also very racist, so you don't have to hand it to Jesse James in this one.
No, you don't. I will say the question of like, okay, all of these guys are breaking into a contemporary, modern day museum of Civil War history.
Well, it's Museum of the American History, and it says Outlaws of the Old West.
Right. So this is raising some dramaturgical questions for me. Is the idea here that both of these gangs have somehow been like transported in time through to the present day to sort of give, I guess, an equal playing field for both of them?
Maybe. I don't know why they're fighting, though.
Well, no, exactly. Their purposes don't seem to be at odds here.
No, because the way this begins is just the James gangs is in a Civil War or an old-timey West museum for whatever reason, and then the car with Al Capone's people pulls up, and it's still that like old-timey 1930s car. So I don't know if this is like the James gang time traveled forward like 60 years or so and then set up shop in a museum in Chicago, and then the Capone boys heard that the James gang was in town and they didn't pay their racket money, I guess. I'm not sure.
Yeah, maybe it's a matter of protecting your turf. Right. I like the idea of protection money, that they had not done what they had meant to do, or that maybe like all of that money that they were stealing was money that was controlled by Capone's gang.
Right. Well, there are a lot of gold coins in the displays, so I feel like they could have just been like, "Oh, here, I broke this, and here you can have the gold from it." Right. I guess just give me my old timey guns. Right. Also, what the fuck is that speed shooter? Let me see it. I feel like these guys, like in reality, best friends. Like, absolutely, Capone would hire Jesse James to go and do shooting all over the place.
So what you're saying is we need to see sort of the alternate cut where they fall in love.
There's no reason why the Deadliest Warrior can't be deadly at love as well as deadly with the guns.
That's so true.
Jesse James femme fatale.
At the end of the day, love and hate are two sides of the same coin.
Right. There's two passions.
That's right.
And what is a gun if not an extension of your penis?
So true.
All right. So the Capone gang walks in. in, and we immediately get guns blazing. Jesse James and his gang start shooting the revolvers that they have. These guys with their machine gun are incredibly bad at machine gunning, especially at 5 feet distance. I've never had to machine gun somebody. I'm going to admit that now, but I feel like I'd be better at it than this.
Yeah, I have never handled a fully automatic weapon, so I don't know.
So let's see. They're shooting. The James gang busts into one of the other displays to get some Winchester rifles, and they just kind of keep going. And they're running through these halls. So this museum is in horrible disrepair. Everything is really like gross and moldy outside of where they're at, which makes me think that this, like, maybe they moved into a Chicago tenement. I'm not sure, but it looks like shit. It looks like a row house kind of situation in here. We got one guy in the Capone gang gets gut shot and then Bowie knifed in the back.
That was really an unfortunate way to go for that guy.
Oh, right. Well, I'm already shot, bro. But also that's a gut shot. As they said in the show, that's going to last for a couple of days. You're going to linger. So really, the Bowie knife in the
it was a mercy, yeah.
Yeah. So they jump into there's another looks like full of file cabinets. So now we're in, I guess, what are the museum admin offices, shooting things and throwing grenades and whatnot. And the Capone gang keeps going down. Like, these guys suck.
Yeah.
I feel like maybe it's because the Capone gang is more used to fighting people who don't fight back.
Well, and also, what we're doing here is we are abstracting the statistics because, as we've learned, they run 1,000 simulations, and statistically, it's like, this is how many the Capone gang would win. This is how many the James gang would win. And so what we're seeing here is essentially the average of all 1,000 of those simulations.
Absolutely. And this is how the Slytherin software would assume this gets done.
Right.
Is by running through a museum of old-timey West stuff.
By the way, what is this software?
Slytherin software, and keep in mind, this is 2009. It's a British gaming software.
Oh.
They don't really get into how it works, but I will say that anytime that you see Max Geiger working on Excel, he's actually working on OpenOffice.
Okay.
Like, he specifically brought that up in a Reddit Ask Me Anything.
I'm looking at these guys, and I guess they're a studio, and they mostly do strategy games, and it looks like they've developed most of the Warhammer 40K PC games.
Yeah, that's what this is. This is machine learning for Warhammer 40K.
It makes sense, yeah.
Yeah, like how I can't know how 10,000 Space Marines would act until I know how Jesse James would kill Al Capone.
Right.
It's all we gotta crawl before you walk, before you run. So one day, maybe we need to get Slytherin back in the mix and say, hey, let's redo this. Now that technology has advanced 15 years, maybe we can get some new stuff here. We can figure out if really Jesse James is the strongest person.
That's great. And then we can get a new season of Deadliest Warrior.
That's all. That's what America needs.
Absolutely. Again, sign the executive order. Make it happen.
So in the end, we have, it looks like Al Capone down to just himself fighting, just getting into a brutal fist fight with who I assume is Jesse James, who they have playing Jesse James in a prison bathroom. I guess this whole thing is a museum because now they're in there's a jail cell. There's all of these police mannequins and police officer uniforms. There's one that's in a jail uniform, the stripy one. There's the toilet that has no seat to it inside of there. And then they bring out the Bowie knife, they bring out the stiletto, they bring out the, let's beat the shit out of each other with brass knuckles and everything. But, Jesse James wins, kills Al Capone, and 2 of the James gang ends up surviving, which is kind of surprising. Usually it's only 1.
I guess the simulation really found them to have an overwhelming advantage.
Yeah. Well, the problem is that Al Capone was too busy beating up one guy and forgot that the other guy was still alive.
Right.
He wasn't doing the math. He wasn't looking at the little ticks down at the bottom to show us how many people have died so far.
Well, I think he probably just got overly confident in the same way that the guy whose name I can't remember, but I'm going to call him Baby Billy, got overconfident.
Yeah. So, Josh, how are you feeling about the end of this? Do you feel like do you feel they got it right?
Yeah, I think they did justice to the concept. And to be honest, again, having never watched this before, this was actually a lot better than I thought it would be. It was more entertaining, both in terms of its execution and its, I guess, rigor, relatively speaking. It would be very easy to do a version of this show that took the concept less seriously, but they really go for it.
Yeah, they want it to be entertaining, but they do want to try to figure some things out too. And even if it's the most basic of science, like when they're figuring out how strong of a stab you're doing, they put the motion sensors on the wrist, they put the stress, the shockwave indicators on things. They are trying to gather actual information. And Jeff Desmoulins is a doctor. Like he has I believe he has a doctorate or at least a master's in, doing these kind of biomedical research and things like that. And, for as goofy as these guys are, Jeff Desmoulins and Dr. Armin Dorian, the guy with the easiest job on the planet of being a doctor is to walk up to a gel torso and say, yep, he's dead. As you can see here, you cut his head off.
No, but he does some pretty serious analysis of the thing.
This one, yeah. So here's the thing. In this one, it was a little surprising because there was a lot more from Dr. Dorian.
Okay.
In the past, there's not as much because the stiletto and the Bowie knife both are kind of smaller weapons. Same with the guns. Having somebody be able to say like, well, this would be a kill, but this wouldn't be. The guy can walk away from this one, or he can get to a hospital and survive. So Dr. Dorian was actually a lot more involved in this one and giving us a yes, this guy is dead, and no, this guy isn't. But a lot of times in the past, it's just like, all right, we're going to take this skull and we're going to hit it with this morning star, and the skull like deteriorates, and Dr. Dorian.
Yeah, there's not much to say. He's dead.
What do you want me to say?
I think Dr. Dorian was also a little freaked out by the whole switchblade thing.
Yeah, everybody was a little, except for Jeff Desmoulins. Jeff Desmoulins was into it.
He thought it was so fun. Yeah.
And Jeff Desmoulins has some other like really interesting previous stuff too, because he used to be in he's Canadian. He used to be in the Canadian military, and he was a paramedic. So, and at the beginning of every episode, they kind of lean on a different thing that he's done.
Okay.
This one was the biomedical researcher because they need him to do biomedical stuff. But when they were doing the IRA versus the Taliban, and they do the the M16, the Armalite versus the AK-47, they're like, well, he was in the Canadian military, and this is he'll have the expert in this. And
yes, Canada, which as we all know is North America's Ireland. Yes,
right. And look, there's a lot of people who are in the army who don't know shit about guns. I do because I'm weird like that, but plenty of them I wouldn't trust their opinions on guns. But
like a man known as Pete Hegseth, for instance.
Yeah.
Got his ass.
Politics. Yeah. So I feel like in the end, Jesse James coming on top. Like I said, local boy. We all know and love him around here. I'll give you a little bit more here on Jesse James. Some of my favorite stuff about the James gang. So there is a cave. Missouri is full of show caves, right? So the caves where you can go and walk in. There's you can see stalactites, stalagmites, all the stuff. Missouri loves those. We have them all over the place.
Stalagmites and stalactites.
I know, in this economy, yeah. So there's one called Merrimack Caverns that's about an hour outside of St. Louis that my wife and I like to visit. And they have a whole, like, this is where Jesse James, the James gang, hid in this cave one time after a bank robbery. And you go inside the cave and there's loot rock. This is the rock that they put their loot on to divide up the loot. And, they have like these little mannequins, these statues of Jesse and Frank James dividing the loot, and like, oh, what's going to happen? It's the most ridiculous. Like, it never happened. 100% never happened. They even during the tour tell you this room was flooded until we came in and did all the, show cave stuff like in the 1930s. So absolutely no way that that's true at all. But just 3 miles outside of the cave is the Jesse James is Alive Museum. Or no, the Jesse James Wax Museum, which is the Jesse James Was Alive Museum, which you go inside and it is this really like unsettlingly well put together museum about the conspiracy of Jesse James was not killed by Robert Ford. Robert Ford didn't kill him. Jesse James faked his death.
Oh.
And then the people who owned the cave found an old man, and were like, hey, can you just pretend to be Jesse James?
That's so funny.
And then they made him live in the cave.
What?
They made him in a hospital bed because he was old as balls. Like Jesse James was alive in the 1860s, and we're talking about the 1920s and 30s. So they got this old man to tell these stories that were 100% made up. And there's a shack that is still there today. When you go in, is the Jesse James hideout shack that they built inside of this cave and made an old man live in until he died in like the 1940s.
Dude, the early 20th century is so funny to me. Like, you could just do anything you wanted and people would believe you. You could put up any like shitty show and people would be so entertained. It was like playing on not just easy mode, but like easy mode with cheats on.
It was also a time when you could like just radically change your profession.
Yes.
Like one of Jesse James's stepfathers was a doctor, but then he wasn't making enough money as a doctor, so he became a farmer. You know, because you could just do that. Sure. You could just be, I'm a doctor. Now I'm a farmer. Now I work in a grocery store. Because like literally nothing required any skill other than can you show up and not fuck up.
Right.
Like, basic math needs to be done, and that's about it. And even that is, you know, a hard ask for people in the 1860s. So I do appreciate this time and what we've lost when dudes could like it was the last time dudes really could rock. Like now it's like you can only rock under certain circumstances.
Yeah, like when Party Rock is in the house, for instance. That's one of the times that you can, you know.
Right, but LMFAO is never going to be like, well, we're done with this music thing. We're going to become doctors.
No,
just become a doctor. You can't do that.
Come
they
on,
got to go to
come
school.
on. It's Party Rock is in the house tonight, not Party Doc is in the house tonight. Come on.
Well, Josh, thank you so much for coming on. Talk about your show.
Well, I co-host a show called The Worst of All Possible Worlds. We talk about media, we talk about culture, we talk about the intersection of media and culture and also politics. Every week, it's a different case study in a different piece of media. And we cover a wide range of things: movies, video games, TV shows, theater, Christian children's radio drama, you name it, we've talked about it. And it's our hope that by listening to the show, you'll have some fun, you'll be entertained, but you'll also learn a little bit about the narratives, both the explicit ones that you can easily see, as well as the subversive and subliminal ones that you might have missed. So go check us out. We are worstpossible.world is our website. We've also had Nate on the show a couple times. And so, yeah, I think if you go check it out, you'll have a good time.
Well, when you are ready to cross this bad boy over, I can send you the IRA versus the Taliban episode, and you guys can go wild with that one.
For Deadliest Warrior, Worst of All Possible Worlds.
Yeah, exactly. Look, I'm going through every episode.
Oh, wow.
And I get somebody new because I feel bad about giving one person this much psychic damage that isn't myself.
Sure.
So, but I will definitely bring you back on since seems like you loved it. So
I mean, I love this. I don't know if I could watch every single episode of it, you know, but
that's why I do one a month.
But you mentioned psychic damage. I mean, I can tell you the psychic damage of watching this show is nothing compared to the psychic damage of listening to Adventures in Odyssey, the aforementioned children's Christian radio drama, which we've now subjected Nate to, I think, 8 or 9 episodes of over the course of the years. Anyway.
Don't break my co-host. I need him.
Oh, no. We're going to break him.
We'll just break him in a way that I can still use him. I think we'll be fine.
Perfect.
He's a dad now. You can't really break it.
No, exactly. Dads are built of stronger stuff. I've heard of, it sounds like dadhood is really forging him right now.
It is. He thought that the infantry was bad. You know, guess what? Wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning because a 6-month-old just shit themselves and needs you to deal with it. If a private woke me up as like, Sergeant, I shit myself, I'm like, I don't give a fuck.
Right.
Go
change, bro. Like, yeah, no, exactly.
Do you need some underwear? I didn't bring you any.
Right.
Like, what do you want?
Figure it out.
All right, Josh, thank you so much. Everybody, thank you for listening, and we will talk to you next week.